Okay, we're getting folks who are jumping in here. Over to the side, you guys, you will see in the chat, I highlighted 3 links for you. One is obviously Aslina Wine. So if you're like, oh, what else do they do? You can go and you can click on that link and go to the website. The one below that is for Gradwell Wines, and Gradwell is the importer, the agency here locally in Ontario that brings the Aslina wines into town. So if after this you want to get more Aslina wines, you can't find them in your LCBO, definitely contact Gradwell and they will they'll take care of you. And then thirdly is the link to my site. We've got, we're going to talk about some things today around winemaking and grapes and just geography. So there are some really good resources on my particular site there. So that's also there. So yeah, I think I'll get started because I know we only have, I want to be mindful of your time. Ntsiki, it's 7 p.m. there. So I want to get started. I want to keep you up too late. But everybody, thank you guys for joining today. I know some of you have wine, and it's going to be a fun experience where we're going to taste Ntsiki's wines and then also ask a couple of questions to learn more about her story. So this is going to be fun. We're going to pepper in wine and talk, what I love to do in my free time, wine and talk. But before I bring Ntsiki up to the formal stage, I don't know if you guys realize who we have here with us today. I am truly honored to be able to speak with and taste alongside virtually with Ntsiki Biyela of Aslina Wines. Ntsiki has done so many things in her career. Soon after graduating with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, going on to be the first Black female to be head winemaker at a particular winery. And then your first, if I recall, your first red vintage won an award. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. And then 2009, they call you the best Black or best female winemaker in South Africa. That honor, right? Yeah. Fast forward to today, where we are today, which brings us together. 2017, you formed Aslina Wines, named after your grandmother, and you're just doing amazing things, pioneering, giving back, and inspiring. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the people who are joining. Apologies that I'm not in Canada.
Yeah, we will.
It's the legalities.
I know, we will address that. But the good news, I mean, yes, we wanted to do this as like a multi-course dinner with you and ask you questions in person and taste wines. So that didn't happen this year, but it's going to happen next year. And we'll drop some feedback or some little teaser about what we're going to do next year with Ntsiki. But I want to get started. As I mentioned to you guys before, there are 3 links. One is to Aslina, their website, if you want to learn more about them. And one is to Gradwell Wines, who is the agency that brings these wines into Toronto. For those of you who have wines with you, please open up your Chenin. We're going to start there. That's going to be our first wine that we're going to taste. So get that opened and in your glasses. So people, lay folks, when they think wine and they think about South Africa, a lot of them don't think Chenin, which which we're going to change. And that's changing, obviously. I remember writing a piece about the Old Vine project in South Africa and learning that an enology school from France actually came down to get cuttings of Chenin from South Africa to help with their study of what's going to happen with the global warming and so forth and climate change. But I want to ask you, why Chenin? Why did you choose to make this particular wine?
So besides that, Chenin really is one of the abundant grapes in South Africa. For me, it's the versatility of Chenin. Chenin is very versatile. So you can actually we've got it in brandy, we've got it as dessert wine, we've got it, in all shapes and forms. And when I was deciding to make the white wine, I wanted to have a skin fermented white wine. So I was like, I do have Sauvignon Blanc, I do have Chardonnay, and they all actually have their different personalities, completely different styles. With the Sauvignon Blanc, tank fermented, left on the lees for 4 months. Chardonnay, partly wooded, so it's like, okay, let's have a little bit of oak here, and then get to Chenin. I was like, I want something different. I want a white wine that is fresh fruit, but I wanna chew it. I wanted this chewy part of it. I wanted this tannin thing, because in my previous job, so I used to work with red wines. So I was just focusing on reds, and so and this was actually answering the question I had then, because I was focusing on reds, and I was like, I wonder what happened if you ferment a white wine on skin. I know that with the reds, I know why we're doing it on the reds. This was around 2004, 2005, 6. And I was like, what happened when you do this on the white wine?
So you were starting the amber movement. You were starting the orange wine movement.
I didn't even know about orange wine. It was just a question and the thinking. But then I couldn't experiment at that time. And fast forward in 2019, I say to my importer in the US, I said, listen, I'm thinking of experimenting with a skin fermented white wine. And then she was like, oh, that would be great. Actually, it is on the market. What wine are you going to use? I'm like, I think I'm going to use Chenin, because I don't have Chenin on the portfolio. But at the same time, I just love that Chenin. I can do anything that I want. I can play with that.
Yep.
And so she's like, actually, there's a lot of orange wine on the market. Let's go taste. So we went bar hopping, tasting different orange wine. And I was like, no, that's not what I want. And like, I'm clear. And she's like, but this is what the market wants. And I was like, but I'm not going to drink it then, because I'm not drinking this. What I want, I just want a white wine, fresh, but I want this touch of tannin. I want to sit outside, have something to nibble, and have this white wine. But it must give me that texture of a red wine. And I said, this is what I'm looking for. So started experimenting in 2021. I bought the grapes at the farm where I'm working with, Delheim. And I remember talking to the winemaker. I was like, hey, listen, I'm looking for Chenin. I want to experiment with this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can give you the Chenin, but we've got from our old vines. And I was like, he said, you can get some of that. Actually, it only fell on the old vines on the 2020, where are we now? On the 2023 vintage. It was literally like close to that. It was 33 years old, so 2020. Wow. Yeah, so now it's 35. So, and then I was like, okay, great, let's do that. And I got the grapes. I bought 5 tons of grapes. And it's like, let's be clear here. If it goes south, you're still paying for my grapes. I was like, well, I would have used your grapes, so I definitely have to pay for them. And so, but it was an exciting experiment for me, because I was scared at the same time, because I haven't done this thing. I'm clear of what I want, but because it's a first trial, like, to just keep on tasting and making sure that I'm doing this right. And so I kept it on the skin for 7 days. I pressed it and took it to the tank. And so it was like just experiment bits and pieces. Put 1 month in oak. I put it for a month in oak, and just to give it that aeration. And then I took it out, because I was like, I don't want oak. I just need a little bit of oxygenation. So
large oak or small?
I use a small one. So I kept it just for a month. And then, because it was a small volume, so I could swap it in and out. And I did that. And that one came out beautifully. And I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. And then 2022, though, I decided, okay, I need a little bit more fruit, though, here. So, which is what you're tasting. So I still did. So then I did 80% of it on the skin. And then I did only about 20%. I did it overnight. So 80% was on the skin for 7 days. And then 20% I did it overnight, because I was like, I need this fruit to be, So I did that. And again, I was like, okay, this is great. So, and then 2023, I changed it a bit.
Oh, did you? What did you do?
2023, I decided to actually ferment it 7 days on the skin, but then the 20% was fermented completely dry.
Oh.
As juice. Yeah. Without the skin at all. And then so it's like just adding the wine that is fresh into. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I recently had your 21 and 22 side by side. And what you just said, you can definitely pick that up in the glass. So for us, with the 2022 that we have now, like what kind of things can we expect on the nose and on the palate with this?
So for me, that wine, it actually, I've even realized with each year, even though it's still a short time with the wine, it's the honey bush tea. There's a little bit of honey, but then it always reminds me of the fresh tea leaves when you boil them. And so it's that honey bush tea character that I pick up on the wine. And then the texture, it's got like such a good acidity, but that roundness in the wine. And that, it gives me, and then like I do want to chew into it.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's got weight to it. And this is, to me, your Chenin is the ideal wine for me when I'm doing food and wine pairing. If I'm looking for, I've got maybe a dish that's a bit thick in terms of texture and so forth and structure, I'm going to pull out something like this. This is beautiful. I really do love this. Anybody who's got the wines, well, I saw Yvonne said this is beautiful. Yvonne is also a winemaker, so winemaker love. She's like, this is beautiful. And I will tell you, when your Chenins came onto the market, I do know a couple of people who have restaurants who have purchased this for the restaurant. And I walked in and they're like, you need to try this Chenin. You need to try this Chenin. So it does have quite the following. And a lovely nose too, like the bouquet on the nose, it gets you excited for the palate, like all that orange blossom.
Yes.
Here, this is delightful. I could drink a bunch of this. Someone is saying we need a guided wine tasting in South Africa. Yes, we do. We all need to go to South Africa. For now, we're doing it online. Any other thoughts about this wine before I move on? I could just sit here and drink this, but we've got a whole... it is very lovely. What food do you recommend to pair with it? I have paired this Chenin with jerk chicken. I have paired it with jollof rice. I have paired it. So anything that's hearty, like and big and spicy, it doesn't have to be spicy, but anything that's hearty and you want like a cool wine to drink with it, cool in terms of temperature, this Chenin is perfect for it. This Chenin can stand up to your one pot dishes. So your cook up rice, your pilaus, all of that. It's wonderful.
Yep. And when you're touching on that spicy character, this is what we've realized, that every time, like it's just a touch of spice, it just brings the fruit of the wine basically jumps out. Correct.
Exactly. I was just chatting with some people about Pinot Noir and how when that spice hits that red berry gets more vibrant. And so that's what you see transforming in this glass. Yeah. For those of you who have wines, we're going to go to the Chardonnay next. So please get that in your glass and then we'll move on to that. For now, keep sipping on the Chenin while Ntsiki and I just chat. Talk to us about how you even got into winemaking. Now, I feel like I read somewhere that at first you wanted to be an engineer.
Yes.
Okay, so good thing you weren't successful because then we wouldn't have these wines. But talk to me about how you got into winemaking.
So actually getting to winemaking, what had happened was applying for scholarship for engineering. I kept on getting the letters that says we regret. And then so when I got a call from school saying there's a scholarship to study agriculture at the University of Stellenbosch, we've got application forms, you need to apply and whatnot. I didn't even ask why. I was like, yes. And unfortunately, the application forms were in Afrikaans. So I had to sit with my Afrikaans teacher to help me go through that. And getting accepted at the university, and they said, when the university accepts you, then the scholarship will basically come on board. That was South African Airways. And so when I got accepted and then I notified South African Airways that I got accepted, they're like, okay, great. And then they asked me, do you know that's in Afrikaans? I was like, no, that's fine, I'll learn. I was clueless of what they meant because for me, Afrikaans, I was thinking the one that is at school being taught Afrikaans in Zulu and adding English in it. So I wasn't really thinking that when they say you're going to be taught in Afrikaans, it means Afrikaans. Okay. Like real hardcore. Yeah. Until I got to Stellenbosch and I remember being above the library on the Roy Plain, and basically everyone is walking past and they're speaking a language I've got no clue what they're saying. And then I was like, okay, that's great. And I got another lady who was like, where do you want to go? And then she assisted me to go to the hall where we were supposed to be. And the lecturer started talking and cracked jokes, and everybody laughs, and you look around and you realize that you're clueless of what just happened.
Oh.
And it was when everybody stood up and I was like, oh, they're done. And then you walk out.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like, but for me, it was that part of saying, if I don't do this, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I was like, let me fight it here. Let me try and make it work here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how did you maneuver this? Like you're taking a new course, you're in university, and it's in a language you don't even know what they're saying. How did you maneuver that?
So I think there was a lot of stress, obviously, with that. First, I had to try and find out how do I eliminate my stress. So one of the students, who was the previous year, said to me, I need to go to student counseling because I was really like slowly losing it.
Yeah.
And so I went for student counseling and I explained to them, listen, I'm going to fail. I'm clear with that, but I need you to help me out so that I don't fail. And then so they were like, well, we can't do that. How are we going to do that? And at that time I was crying anyways. Yeah. So they're okay, fine. You're going to need to come and see us every week and we'll write a letter if you fail to the university. So when I went back to study, I was like, okay, fine, I'm doing my first year. It's going to be sort of a ground year. And then I'm going to fail this one. And then next year, then I pass. But for now, I need to just understand what's happening. Yeah. So I took that year as a year of just, but luckily I passed. So, yeah.
That says something about your character and just who you are in terms of perseverance. I don't think there's many people who would be put in that situation and be successful at that. So that's a lot.
I think also asking the lecturers for extra classes.
Yeah.
I was like, we need extra classes. So they gave us tutors. So we'll get like an honor student or a master's student to actually, so you'll attend the class. After class, you go to the tutor class to get whatever was being said in class so you can understand.
Wow. Hands up to you. So I'm going to move on to your Chardonnay.
Yes.
Chardonnay, it shouldn't be, but it could be a divisive grape where people are like, I don't really like Chardonnay. You have those people.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, but I love Chablis, they say. Anyhow, but those people. What I found with your Chard, it is Chard. It's got, people say Chardonnay is a grape. It's a winemaker's grape. They can mold it into what they want to, but Chard is going to have the great acidity, green apple, all that stuff. And so I can tell, right, if I was blinding, that this could be a Chard, but it's got a specific fingerprint on it. Like your fingerprint, you know what I mean? It's got a very uniqueness to it. So talk to me about what's in my bottle and in my glass.
So what you have on your glass is basically the expression of somebody who thought they cannot drink Chardonnay.
Oh, that was you. You were one of those.
No, so what happened was actually, I was never a person who say I don't like Chardonnay. When I was judging competition, this is actually what happened. I used to judge competitions, and the wooded Chardonnay, I'll score it high because it jumps on you, man. It's exciting. It's, it's all that. But every time I have a bottle of wooded Chardonnay, I'll try to drink, and I realize that I can't drink much of this.
Yeah, it's
rich. I get full up fast, but I still want to have something, And I was like, this sounds great. It's beautiful, but I just can't. I need something to drink.
Yes.
So what do I drink if I want to drink Chardonnay? And then I'll go buy an unwooded Chardonnay, and I realize that I can drink this, but I feel like it's missing something. I want to add. Just want a touch of oak. I want to add something. So that was the reason really for the Chardonnay you're having. So the specific Chardonnay, part of the grapes are from Stellenbosch and part of the grapes are from Elgin. So with all the experimentation I did or the trials I did, I finally ended up with having Elgin in barrels. That's about 25%, but I'm using second and third fill barrels. So it's older barrels because I want the oak, but I don't want, it's like I want it, but I don't want,
100%. And then using like the older oak, it also adds some texture, like oxidation to the wine, and gives that feel of palate. It's wonderful.
So I did that, and then I do the 75% is Stellenbosch stainless steel tank, but I leave them both on the lees. So it's a second lees, but I don't stir the lees. So I just leave it and forget it, and just make sure that it's full. That's all. And then by the end of it, 10 months later, I blend the wine and basically prep it for bottling. So I still get the Elgin come with minerality, with freshness, good acidity. Stellenbosch come with its richness. But now, because it's not in oak, it's not like fully rich. It's just that nice mellow,
Right.
So then I blend the two.
And I'm going by memory from studying. Your Elgin fruit, that would be from like high elevation locations?
High elevation, cooler climate, yes.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. This is stunning. Stunning, stunning, stunning. All the ABC folks are like anything but Chardonnay. I think you would change your mind with this. Anybody who's got the wine, who's tried this, I would love to get your thoughts on what's in the glass for you. For me, this is, as I said, when I tried it, it's Chard, but it's got a unique fingerprint on it because of that weight on the palate.
So I do get, when I do tastings, like when people can just approach and taste, and the person was like, no, let's skip Chardonnay, let's go to the next one. And I'm always like, nope, we're not skipping anything. If you skip, then you're not continuing at all. So
I like that attitude.
And they taste the Chardonnay and they're like, oh, actually, I can drink this. And I'm like,
yeah.
So it's one of the, I think it's one of those things within the industry that, as people in the industry, we understand that you need to try it all.
100%.
Because it's not a one size fits all, but at the same time, it's not like a cultivar. It all has someone, you can cook the same food. It's not going to be the same. You have the same recipe, but whatever you do, at the end of the day, it doesn't come out the same, exactly the same. Yeah.
You know what? I had a sip maybe a minute ago, or however, it is still persisting on the palate. It's still there. It's still, and it gives you that on the side palate. You get like a bit of a spice kick, a bit of an anise kick, a bit this stuff that's happening on the palate with this. This is really lovely.
Yeah, it's like most wine. They like, it's like have a conversation with it.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Someone said this is such a lovely balance between bright fruit texture and a bit of richness. It's really incredible, very complex. There you go.
Thank you.
Look at these accolades for these wines.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit as we went through the Chenin and the Chard about what went into it and why. I would love to learn more about your winemaking philosophy in general, and then relate that back to like how it reflects in Aslina wines when we purchase these wines.
So, selfishly, the wines I'm making, they're really based on what I want to drink.
Well, that's good. If you're not going to drink it, then yeah.
So it's like, as I'm explaining with the Chenin, really, it was like, because I've been making red wines for about 13 years before I started Aslina Wines. And so from making red wines, tapping into the white wine, it was a new thing. So I knew that I love Cabernet. I knew that I love Bordeaux blends. That was like a no-brainer. I'm going to make these wines because they speak to me. And I knew that on my reds, basically it's minimal intervention. I don't wanna engineer it. I wanna just allow it to be. And I'm working with the farms that I've been working with for a longer time, and we understand each other in terms of the size of places where we get the grapes. So, but when it comes to white wine, it was I'm going to call it a new territory for me. It was like, okay, fine, I know what I want to drink on the red, but what is it that I want to drink on the white wines? Mm-hmm. So I had to go on that. And also just making sure that the side of vineyards that I'm getting they're going to help me to get what I want.
Yeah. And
hence, even when, like the Chardonnay, I'm getting it's Stellenbosch and Elgin, but the Stellenbosch part also, it's against the mountain. So it's not, it's a bit cooler. So it's just playing with all those things, but also making sure that when it's time then to deal with the wine itself, it must actually just present itself. It's cultivar. As a cultivar, it must present itself as is.
I love that. You're letting the grape express itself, and through that, the resulting wine.
Yeah.
for those with wine, we're going to move on to the Cabernet Sauvignon. So please pour that in your glass. But I want to talk to you about the process of procuring grapes and how much say do you have in like the viticulture practices, the vineyard management practices that are happening there?
So what we do closer to, let's like November, around November, that's where we start, because we've spoken, we know which vineyard we're working with, but around November, just to check. And our farmers, they know that we cannot have too many bunches because we're avoiding certain things. They have to do green harvesting for us. Mm-hmm. And so we know that this is the tonnage we're looking for, but also for the quality that we want. They understand, even though it end up being costly, obviously. But it's one of those. I think I've been really blessed to work with farms who they also have my best interest at heart. It's not just about them selling grapes. It's about we need to make sure we're giving you the right grapes so that you can sell that one and come back and get the grapes. So yeah, but also we've got IPW, integrated production of wine, and which deals with sustainability. So right. They're making sure that they do sustainable practices in the vineyards.
Interesting. Let's talk about sustainability in organic practices. Are there certain must-haves that a vineyard must be doing in order for you to work with them? Do you have a list of, you must be sustainable, you must, and so forth?
Yes, you must be sustainable. I think also the good thing with South African wine industry is that in general, South African wine industry has been like that for a longest time. Hence, when the world woke up to the sustainability thing, I thought they were talking about something. I was like, probably it's something that we haven't been doing. Maybe it's new. And then you're like, guys, this has been a way of life in South Africa in terms of sustainability. We get audited, and so it has been just part of life in our winemaking processes. That we know that the auditor is going to come and check what chemical you use, where are the invoices, where is this, where did you put, how do you pack it? And then we've got Vita who come and check, okay, your employees, what's happening with this? Even the sustainable part, they do check that. But Vita is focused exactly on that, Yeah. And the sustainability side, they're checking how you're disposing anything that you're utilizing in your vineyards or in the cellar. What are you using is not harmful to people? All those things. They search that. And you've got South African Wine Industry Services who comes in and making sure that when you say this is Stellenbosch, it is Stellenbosch. Mm-hmm. Because immediately you say, I'm done with my harvest, they're coming to do a stock take. You don't give them the volumes you have. You give them, and then they go to your cellar to say, now we want to see.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We've got all these intense processes that have been going on for since I started in the industry. It's been like that. Right. So when people talk about sustainability, I was like, probably maybe there's something new into this. And then you check, guys, what have you been doing? So it's like, what has the world been doing when South Africa was doing this?
Right. What has the world been drinking? Right?
Oh, yes. What has the world been drinking when we've been doing this thing in terms of sustainability?
That's hilarious. All right. I'm moving on to your Cabernet Sauvignon. We got a bigger bowl glass for that. Completely rich in texture. I will be honest, I've not had, I don't believe, the Cabernet Sauvignon yet. So it's the 2021 Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes. Okay. So, Cabernet, this is one grape that I've been working with since I started making wine. Mm-hmm. And also with that, I've never made 100% Cab.
No?
No. When it started, actually, it was, when you're in the cellar, it started by me just saying, I'm like, oh yeah, I've got 1 barrel of Cape Franc, and then you'll notify South African Wine Industry Services, I'm using this to that because of this 15% we are allowed to play with. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So when I started Aslina Wines, I was at the time when I was really excited about Petit Verdot. And I tasted Petit Verdot from different wine regions. And I was like, this is actually very interesting. This is an exciting cultivar. And I think I've been trying to find what is it about it. And I'm getting really attracted to chewy tannins, ripe chewy tannins. And so anything that gives me that, it's like, yes. So when I was tasting this patty, I was like, damn, I love its brightness. I love its velvety character. And so adding another cab, and it brought for me that velvety part was being moving as if it's like it's chalky. And then I'll get this little bit of chewiness. And then, so it's this cab for me. It's like I'll take a sip and I'm like, I'm chewing it. I enjoy this. But then it forces me to get food because it says I need food. I need something. So the grapes are from Stellenbosch. So it's from the Helderberg side, which is much closer to the sea than the Simonsbeek side. And then the Petit Verdot come from the Simonsbeek side. So I get a little bit of Helderberg. I get more of the Helderberg, and then there's a little bit of Cab from Simonsbeek plus the Petit Verdot that I use, which is about 14% in the wine. So I basically just add I call it a little bit, but actually I'm just adding it right to the end, like as much as possible to what I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
Because I love that character that it brings into the wine for me.
I do like this. It's got like grippy tannins, but the acidity is right there to kind of play its role. And then the fruit is also, it's like ripe fruit amongst that. So the tannins come first, and then the acidity kind of comes in there to kind of get your palate ready. And then that fruit, like the bright black fruit, currant, blackberry. This is another stunning wine.
So yes, it's just it's so fresh, and then the again, what the role of this petty, it brings that, and then it brings this freshness in the wine, and for me, it just And this is again the wine that I remember. I think as a winemaker, you learn different things at different times, and when I always look back when I started making wine, like you don't come anywhere close to anything spicy with the red wines, and I went to Japan and we're tasting and we're doing a dinner and we paired the Cabernet with spicy noodles.
Yep.
I remember looking at this, that was way back. That was like 20, can't remember, but within this 7 years of Aslina. And I tasted it and I was like, okay, spicy noodles. I wonder how spicy are these noodles? But like what happened was, as I was tasting it, I literally streamed with excitement. I was like, oh my goodness, this works, because I had not tried it before. So I think when it comes, this is what I like when talking about food and wine pairing, really, it's try what as much as possible. Sometimes try something that seems that it's not supposed to work, and you see some surprises that come out. And it's one of those where we say, actually, unless we try things, we're just never going to know. We're always going to say we must move this. This is the path, but never really a set in stone path. And so we tasted those spicy noodles. Again, it brought this explosion of fruits and sweetness in the wine, and I was like, oh my goodness! So it was amazing.
Yeah, you know what? I did a dinner where I had a master of wine and a master sommelier at the table, and the main was curry goat. And I paired it with a Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa that had seen a little bit of oak in it.
Yes.
And then the master sommelier, because they're all about food and wine, and he was like, Beverly, I don't know if this is a good idea. Are you sure you meant to do this? I'm like, I absolutely did. And what it was that clove and allspice that you get from the oak sometimes in the wine just went, and it made like a lovely congruent pairing with the clove and allspice that you get in the curry spice. And it was just it was wonderful, just saying. So I agree with you. It's about trying everything and figuring things out. And I say the same thing to people when they're like, oh, I didn't like this wine at first, but with food, so you can't say you don't like something. Just keep trying new things. 100%.
Yeah.
We're gonna go on to the last one. So let's get that in your glass. But before we do that and jump there, I want to. You lightly touched on something, and then I jumped like this when we were talking about sustainability. And we know that sustainable practices are not only like what you're doing in the winery and in the vineyard and so forth, but it's also about how you show up in community, how you help your fellow person, how you treat your employees. Now, we all know, and South Africa is not the only place, and there are places today in Europe who are going through all kinds of human rights issues in terms of how they treat their vineyard workers. But we all know that South Africa has got a bit of a storied history when it comes, not a bit of it, but a storied history when it comes to that. Yeah. And so now here's you, and there's a couple parts of this question. Now here's you on the scene, fresh, bright out of school, in a male-dominated world, a white male-dominated world. I want you to kind of, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about if you reflect and look back, your experience being who you are and coming out of school and jumping right into that. Just if it's any kind of reflection on that.
So I think the university prepped me for it. Even though at that time it didn't sound like prepping me. It sounded like you're fighting me.
Like, are you sure you want to do this?
It sounded like you're fighting me. But the university prepped me for this. And as a student, I worked at Delheim Wines. And again, I got prepped there because I remember when I was at Delheim, there was this one time where the general manager took me with. He was like, there's a winemaker seminar. We're going because we're studying winemaking. And I got all excited. I was like, yes, I'm going to meet other winemakers. I think my brain was not registering to say what I'm seeing at university is exactly what's in the industry. But it was, until I got to remember walking into the space and there was a lady registering everyone at the door and inside was only men. And I was like, okay, at least there's one woman here.
Yeah.
And she finished her registration, closed her book and left. And I thought, what the hell? It was like somebody just popped my bubble and got, and I said to the general manager, I'm not going to walk in here. And he's like, you know what, you're going to need to get in. You are going to need to get in. If you don't get in, how is this going to change?
Yeah.
And I was like, not by me.
Yeah.
So I walked in, I sat, and it went on in Afrikaans. And I think I walked out on that day terrified. Because I thought of, at the university, of course, students asking you, what are you doing in an Afrikaans university if you don't understand Afrikaans? But it wasn't what they were asking, it's about the how. Because the question was not asking because it's asking in a sense that it's like someone saying, what the hell are you doing here? Kind of.
Yep.
So it was that. So when I went out to work in the industry, I don't want to lie, I was terrified. I was worried to say, what am I going to face outside?
Yeah.
But I think then I'm saying the university prepped me because then what I found outside was less than what I experienced at the university. So then I was like, oh, okay, so this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But also, obviously, I had to come to the realization that the industry is white, it's male. So now there's this black woman. I was still young. And I cannot expect somebody to say, oh, yeah, great, you're here.
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of me saying to myself, from now on, I need to focus on the positive because I'm going to meet a lot of negativity, but I need to focus on the positive. And there were winemakers who were very positive, Shame, and they would be like, how can we help? And, and I realized that the industry actually, when you're inside, it's like helping each other. And there's a friend of mine who used to say, see and be seen. And I made it a point that every time I went to the winemaker seminar, I must meet at least one or two people. I must know them, know their dog, have a conversation, build friends.
Yeah.
And it worked. So I had to do that. And it became much better. And I think also my upbringing played a big role in this because I was looking after cows when I was growing up. So I was mostly with the boys, fighting with the boys and all that. So it wasn't, so the male part was not much of a problem than the culture part for me. And seeing that where are Black people here?
Yeah.
So it was that. But I think with me taking myself out there and making conversation and meeting people, and of course I was meeting some people who will come to the winery selling grapes, some farmers, they're like, no, we're looking for a winemaker, not a supervisor. And I used to gladly point them to the office and literally I didn't have any to take, I never took offense in what was happening.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things I'm like, sometimes I look back, I'm like, thank God, because if I was taking offense, I would have been literally blocking myself along the way. Because you're going to be upset, you're going to be this. So it was like, oh, okay, you want, go to the office and they'll see my boss and ask him if he was a winemaker. And he goes, nope, you just left it behind. And he'll bring them back to me. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. There's so, in what you just said, there's so many lessons for, people who are broken out into a new career or in a new industry, in terms of keep the focus where the focus needs to be. But then I also like what the instructor said to you when you didn't want to go in that room. And he said, well, how is it going to change if you don't enter this room?
Yeah. It was interesting actually to meet him years later, after I just started Aslina Wines. And I said to him, do you remember this? He goes, no, I don't remember. And I was like, because he was just doing it because he was being human. He was such a lovely person. So he's like, and I was like, do you remember you took me and this is what happened? He's like, I remember the part in Pulp, but I don't remember all the, So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a lesson that stayed with you, obviously, up until now. We are moving on to what I think is an incredible wine, the Umsasane. Confession, my favorite grape is Cabernet Franc. And then every time I hear something has Cabernet, I'm like, oh, that's why I like it. I mean, who knows? But before we even get into this, talk to us about the impact that your grandmother had in your life. Like Aslina is named after her.
Yes.
And this wine, the Umsasane, is in honor of her, right?
Yeah, that's her nickname.
Oh, is that her? That's so cute. So tell me a bit about that influence, your grandmother's influence, and how that drives you today or plays a part in what you do today.
So I grew up under my grandmother's guidance. So she taught me basically everything. I'll say everything about life, really, through example, through doing what she was doing and just loving, and I think doing everything from a place of love for others. And that I've derived in saying, even with my work, I do things from a place of love within my workspace. And so that has played a role for me in doing all those things. And so, so I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to name it. Even when she was alive, I told her, when I start a company, I'll name it after you. But I was, when you're a kid, you just say stuff, And then you're like, oh, actually, I remember saying this. So, yeah. So she really played a big impact. And I used to I remember the first time she had to get me to make mkomboti. She would be sitting on the side, she's like, do this, do that, do that, do this. So the only thing I wasn't allowed to do was to strain it, because she felt like I've got we call it, you've got a stingy hand. Yeah. And she's like, I'm not going to allow you to send, she'll strain it herself.
Oh, it's those stories, right? When you think about that kind of helps to build who you are today.
Yeah. So even when I find myself in situations, sometimes I've got moments where I'm like trying to tap into energy. What would you have done?
Oh.
And sometimes that what would you have done? And it's like, I'm like, I don't think I want to do that though. Because the answer was, what would you have done? No, open your arms. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, talk to us a bit about the Umsasane that's in our glass. What was the driver behind it? Yeah.
So the name itself. So this is what happened. Actually, I'm going to just go back to how the name actually, because I remember when I wanted to. So the first ones I made, it was the Cab, Umsasane and Sauvignon Blanc. That's how I went to the market. But I had an order already. People had placed an order, or well, two companies have placed an order for export, but the wine was not labeled. Umsasane was not labeled. Mm-hmm. At that time, I didn't know what name I was going to use for the wine. And I was like, because initially I thought it's going to be the matriarch. Simple, yep. And I'm like, oh yeah, the matriarch is taken. What name am I going to use? And then as I was still scrambling with the name, I'm like, there's an order. And then a friend of mine, Namonde, she's like, we've been friends since varsity. And she said to me, Ntsiki, the order is not going to go away because you haven't gotten the name. Relax, you know how you do your things. You need to be calm. You know where things they come from. You work with calmness and love. So relax, forget all this. I was supposed to go to France at that time for the winemakers collection. because I was part of the winemakers collection to make a wine that get branded with a winemaker in the country. And then they export. One of the wineries in France was doing that. And so I remember saying to her, okay, fine. She's like, no, just go to France. The name is going to come. I was like, okay, cool. So when I was approaching Bordeaux, about to land, and as I was approaching it, I'm seeing all these vineyards.
Yeah.
And then I remembered my first day coming to Stellenbosch that I saw a lot of short trees. Yeah. And I was like, I wonder what are these short trees? And then I realized, and then obviously I was told later, no, these are vineyards. These are all vines, but I was looking at the short trees. Yeah. And immediately I was like, all these short trees. And then I was like, hey, my grandmother's name, the acacia trees. And I was like, so it's the vineyards right now, but this. And I was like, oh, well, this actually is the name that's going to fit well. There's going to be a double dose of my grandma. I couldn't wait to land. And I landed. I called my friend. I was like, I got my name, Umsasane. I'm going to use my grandmother's nickname. That's how she was fondly known. And so I was like, that's going to be the name.
Now, how did she get this nickname? Do you know the story?
So, well, because Umsasane, it's the acacia tree, which is an iconic tree in Africa, right? It's the umbrella tree. That's a protector tree. Mm-hmm. So the tree that when animals or the heat, you go under for protection, for shelter and all that. So basically that's how she had her name, because everyone was, it's like, you've got problems, go to grandma. You've got...
Love that.
That's the direction. So, but apparently she was like that even from childhood, so her sister said. So that was the reason then she was, And so I was like, okay, great. So,
That's awesome. That's a great story.
But, and when this wine, so... because I love Cab, obviously. So Cab Franc, and Petit Verdot. And the reason I know some people, they're like, why didn't you add Merlot? And I'm like, me and Merlot haven't had a good conversation. we talk, but we haven't had that conversation. While Cab Franc, Cabernet, Petit Verdot, we always have this conversation. And, we understand each other. So I decided to actually blend the wine in this way. And what I love about this wine, for me, I call it, it's love in the glass.
Yeah.
It's love in the glass. It's a comfort wine. It's the wine for me when I feel, Ntsiki, you did very well, you deserve a glass of this. Then I'll prep and cool. It becomes ceremonial to open this wine for me. And when I'm going to open, it's because really like I deserve it. But at the same time, it's the wine that I feel like it's a comfort wine. When you need comfort, it's like this is, and it just warms me up.
It does. This, by all rights, textbook is a big wine, but it's very smooth. It's like a lovely velvety blanket. It's comforting. It's, again, you've got like the black fruit, but then there's also a bit of blue fruit in there too on the palate. But everything is very harmonious. Again, there's nothing that, this is an incredible, incredible wine. Anybody, if you got the Umsasane in your glass, I would love to get your thoughts as well. And we're running short on time, but I want to, before we even stop, I want to talk about the work that you're doing with the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. Can you speak to us about that?
Yes. So Pinotage Youth Development Academy the first class was in 2013. And I got involved with PYDA since 2011, 2012, end of 2011, 2012, basically at the inception. So I was one of the advisory board members to us, basically trying to figure out how the cost should be, what should be included, what should we do, what are we looking for. And so what we do, basically, we're training young people through the value chain of the wine industry and then do job placement. These are young people who are from backgrounds where they look at the wine industry as a place where they don't belong because, I'm from here, the wine industry is there. And they're like, no, actually, everyone can get to the industry. So we get these young people, 18 to 25-year-olds, and then they get trained, whether it's through the wine practice course or they get trained through tourism. And we just added something, the new one now, which basically at the end of the day consolidate this whole thing. But we did focus more on personal development, which is the reason we struggle to get funded by the government, because we're not really on, it's like technicalities. You can go get technicalities.
Yeah,
people, they've got issues inside that they need assistance with. So we've got coaches, we've got mentors, and so the students, if there is a bigger issue, then we refer them to counseling, so that they can, because we're bringing this person into the space, but they're still going to be going back to their problems where there are problems. So it's trying to navigate that space. And I remember at some point I said to my mentors at some point when we just started, I was like, I think I'm going to need to sit in some of the classes. And I went and sat in some of the classes because I was like, if the universities could have such, actually, because we've got a lot of stuff that we don't deal with because we don't know how to face it.
Right.
So, so it's basically students from disadvantaged backgrounds.
I think that's amazing. And what's amazing about this program, people will have sponsorship programs or mentorship programs, but no one is saying, oh, you know what, let's deal with what the person could be going through inside. Because you can give them all of these tools. If you have not touched that, addressed that, there's still a chance that they could fail even though you've given them all these tools because of those issues. So I think that is very brilliant, very smart. Am I wrong? I think I read this somewhere that a portion of your wine sales you also give to the Pinotage development?
No, it only happens, it depends what's happening. Then we'll do donations on certain times.
Okay, that's why I might have read something like that. You guys who are here, if you love these wines and love this conversation, I know some of them are available in the LCBO, but if you go straight to Gradwell Wines, which we had put the link to that up at the top of the chat and highlighted it, you can get these wines there. Ntsiki, when am I going to see you?
Please don't put me on this pause.
Just straight at it. What do you think?
Well, we're still working on to look at the end of April.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're still working on that to look at the end of April. But I spoke to Sean because Sean was like, I'm going to need to start now really applying for the visa.
Good.
So, it looks like I'm going to need to start now because I clearly don't understand how Canada works.
Well, neither do I sometimes. But yes, you should start now so that we can see you. For those of you who weren't aware, we're going to do a multi-course food and wine dinner with Ntsiki's Wines, the Aslina Wines. And we're moving that to April. So please stay tuned. It's going to be fantastic. I'm hoping maybe you'll lug some of your sparkling wine in your suitcase for me too, so we can. Oh, you know, what is the sparkling? What grapes did you use for the sparkling? Was it Chenin?
It's 100% Chardonnay from Franschhoek.
Yes. Oh, wow. I'm so excited. I hope I'm going to message Sean just after this to be like, when are you getting the sparkling wine?
No, actually, as we were talking about me going to Canada, he was trying to get the sparkling on that side. But then, and then my trip fell through. So, But thank you so much. It's been great to be here. And thank you to everyone who was online.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Time.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you that sorry that you got disappointed I couldn't come, but it will happen.
It will happen. I know. We have something to look forward to. And Sean is saying sparkling wine will be available by the time Ntsiki arrives. Perfect. That's what I like to hear. You need to look into I4C Cool Chardonnay and come to that. All of your wines are incredible. So you're getting a lot of praise. A lot of things. So thank you guys very much for being with us. Thank you so much, Ntsiki.
Thank you so much.
So now you have time. It's time enough for you to get ready for bed and stuff, right? It's not too late. Was it 8 o'clock?
No, it's 8 o'clock. I sleep at 10.
Okay, there you go. But thank you again. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this and taking the time. And thank you for everybody who was online with us. Cheers.
Yes, thank you so much. Cheers.
Ciao.